Welcome back to the Sturry Link Road project. It's been another busy week across the site, with work continuing on several fronts and some important milestones reached along the way. As one phase of construction begins to wrap up, the next is already gathering pace, and the scale of the operation is becoming more apparent with every visit. This week has seen progress around the future viaduct, the start of a brand new haul road, and the first major drainage works getting underway. Haul Road D has officially begun. With the entrance prepared, the route opened up, and the first deliveries of aggregate arriving on site. In a matter of days, around 100 to 150 meters of the new route has already started to take shape. Elsewhere, specialist equipment has begun leaving the site following the completion of another stage of the piling works, while a steady stream of lorries has continued to deliver the materials needed to keep the project moving forward. From earthworks and drainage to haul roads and site infrastructure, there's been plenty happening wherever you look. And with preparations now well underway for the arrival of the CFA piling rigs, the next major phase of construction is getting ever closer. So let's head out onto the site and take a look at what's been happening this week on the Sturry Link Road project. We're starting this week at the future Haul Road D, where vegetation clearance is getting underway ahead of construction. Working alongside the strimming team is an ecologist, carrying out fingertip searches through the cut vegetation as the area is cleared and prepared for the next phase of works. And here's a good reminder that even routine tasks on a construction site can present unexpected hazards. Watch this closely. A piece of debris flies straight towards me from the strimmer. Thankfully, I was wearing the correct PPE, including safety glasses, which is exactly why they're required in active working areas. With the area cleared and ecological checks continuing, work can now begin on opening up Haul Road D. With the ecological checks complete, work can now begin on creating a new access point for Haul Road D. The first task is protecting existing infrastructure. Here, steel plates are being positioned over BT access covers to shield them from the heavy construction traffic that will soon be using this route. With hundreds of tipper movements expected during the construction of the haul road and piling platform, protecting services beneath the ground is an important consideration. This new access point will eventually provide a route to the future piling platforms for Piers 3 and 4, helping materials and machinery move efficiently around the site. With the preparations complete, the forklift moves in to remove the gates and fencing, opening up another section of the project ready for construction. Once access has been established, excavation gets underway as the topsoil is stripped back ahead of the next phase of works. Here, the supervisor is talking through the plan for the excavated material, ensuring it's placed neatly alongside the route rather than simply being stockpiled wherever space allows. And as the briefing comes to an end and work gets underway, there's one final piece of advice from the supervisor: and enjoy the bugs.
And enjoy the bugs.
Over at Hall Road C, north of the railway, the start of the week saw continued deliveries of 6 F5 stone, steadily extending the Hall Road deeper into the northern section of the scheme. Each load is building out the access network that will eventually link into the northern roundabout and surrounding work areas. As you can see in the footage, the tipper is now well into the site, roughly halfway along the developing route, showing just how quickly this corridor is taking shape. Later in the week, you'll also notice a number of tippers parked up along the Hall Road. This isn't downtime, but part of a managed system to control movements across site, allowing stone deliveries to Hall Road D to be carried out safely under coordinated traffic management. By the end of the week, that progress becomes even clearer, with bulldozers beginning to round the corner and push further towards the future north abutment, extending the works deeper into the scheme. One of the first major signs of permanent infrastructure taking shape this week is the start of drainage works just off the southern roundabout, heading towards the future viaduct alignment. The first trench has been excavated to form the line of a new drainage system running through this part of the scheme. This will become part of the main underground network managing surface water across the project. As the week progresses, the excavation develops quickly, with large diameter pipework being installed. By the end of the week, 900mm pipes are being laid into position, along with precast concrete chambers forming key access points along the route. It's the first real section of permanent buried infrastructure starting to take shape on the scheme, and we'll take a closer look at this at the end of the episode when we go down into the trench with the drone and look up the line of the new drainage run. Back over at the piling platform for Piers 1 and 2, the final stages of sheet piling are being completed. At this point, the attachment on the rig changes to a hydraulic piling hammer. With its striking plate moving up and down, it delivers repeated controlled impacts into the top of the sheet piles, driving them down to their final formation level. A few people have mentioned hearing this in and around Sturry over the past few days, with the noise carrying and echoing across the wider area. This is the process behind it. As the week progresses, the team complete all that they can on this section for now, before preparing to demobilize from the platform ahead of the next stages of work. It's this stage of work that completes the piling line, finishing the edge of the platform ready for the next phase of construction. Hall Road D is now starting to take shape, with a significant area of excavation already opened up at the entrance. Terram and geogrid are being laid down as part of the ground stabilisation works, forming the base layers for the new Hall Road construction. The first loads of 6F5 stone are now being brought in using site dumpers, moving material from the existing Hall Road network into position to build up the entrance bell mouth. This initial formation allows the access to be established so tipper lorries can safely reverse in and begin delivering materials directly into this part of the site. Over at Hall Road C, several tipper lorries are held and positioned along the route as site movements are carefully coordinated. This is all part of a controlled system in place across the project due to the layout of the site and the proximity of the Broad Oak level crossing and access point D. Because of this layout, tippers can't safely reverse into the access point directly from this side, so they are directed north to access point C, where they turn within the developing northern roundabout works before returning to site to reverse in under-controlled supervision. During these movements, traffic is briefly held in both directions to create a safe working window, particularly when operations take place close to the level crossing. The same procedure is used whenever the railway barriers are activated, ensuring there is no conflict between road and rail movements. Once clear, vehicles are brought in one at a time, with the traffic management team coordinating each movement into the correct position. It's a repetitive process, but a necessary one given the number of HGV routes converging in this area, including regular movements linked to surrounding operations. This arrangement will remain in place until the internal haul roads are developed enough to allow vehicles to access and turn within the site itself, reducing the need for these controlled reversing maneuvers. Hall Road C is now noticeably more advanced than earlier in the week, with the earthworks and access routes continuing to take shape across the site. Along the edge of the working area, the planning boundary fencing is becoming more established, with permanent posts now being installed and sections of Harris fencing going in as the boundary line is formed. As the works extend further towards the north abutment and the rail crossing, the fence line begins to run further along the corridor, marking out the extent of the approved working area. This boundary will eventually continue down to the public right-of-way, which has permission in place for diversion from either the 12th or 13th of July. At present, that change will only be implemented when required on site, depending on when works in this area are due to begin. Across the site, things are now beginning to flow more freely as access into the working areas improves. With the entrance routes opened up, materials are now moving more efficiently between different parts of the scheme, allowing both haul roads and drainage works to progress at the same time. At Haul Road D, compaction works are continuing as layers of 6F5 are brought in and built up, with around 600 tonnes a day being delivered across the site and distributed between the main access routes. It's a complex operation to keep track of at times, with material being moved, split and reused across multiple areas, but it reflects just how active the site has become this week. Meanwhile, earlier drainage works are continuing to develop in parallel, with different work fronts now progressing side by side as the project builds momentum. On the southern side of the scheme, further deliveries of A1 fill are arriving on site, being placed to build up and strengthen ground levels in areas that require additional formation. This material is being used to improve and prepare sections of the site ahead of further construction works, helping to bring levels up where needed. Nearby, alongside the earlier 900mm drainage run, Excavation has also started for a concrete chamber installation. These precast units will form part of the drainage system, providing access points for maintenance once the network is complete. Thursday marked another turning point on site, quite literally, as the bulldozer completes a right turn while continuing the earthworks. Across Hall Road C, the dozer is now pushing material further towards the north abutment, shaping and forming the route as it continues to develop. At the same time, ongoing deliveries of 6 F5 stone are building up the formation levels, with thousands of tons of material expected to go into raising and shaping this section of the scheme. This build-up is critical, as the finished levels in this area have to be carefully formed to meet the design requirements for both the future roundabout and the viaduct interface over the railway. That means significant amounts of imported material, compaction and grading before any structural works can begin. Just the other side of the railway, work on Hall Road D is also continuing, with crews steadily progressing the new access into what is becoming a well-defined working area. It's another example of multiple work fronts advancing at the same time, as the wider earthworks start to establish the final shape of the scheme. Dust suppression was in full swing, with water bowsers running constantly just to keep the haul routes from turning into a dust bowl. And at this point, I'm just going to say it.
Please, stop.
Back down at the drainage works near the southern roundabout, things have moved on quicker than expected. I must have spent a bit too long under the water bowser cooling down, because coming back to this area, there are now 2 concrete drainage chambers already in place and forming part of the new system. There isn't too much detail available on this section just yet, but I'll be able to get some more context over the next week and bring that into the next episode, as there'll be plenty more drainage works continuing across this area. As we fly down towards the south abutment, this area is now fully cleared, prepared and ready for the next stage of works. The ground has been formed and levelled out, providing the space needed for the piling equipment to be set up in the coming days. From Monday, the CFA piling rigs will begin mobilising into this section of the site, marking the start of the next major phase of construction in this area. It's another clear sign of how quickly this part of the scheme is moving from earthworks into structural foundations. As you can see here, another large drainage delivery arriving on site with a full load of pipes and components being unloaded for the ongoing works. It's quite striking when you see it like this, just how much infrastructure actually sits beneath our roads. From large diameter pipes to smaller connections, gullies and chambers, it all forms a hidden network most people never really see. This is just another part of that system being built out across the scheme, as each delivery adds to the underground framework that will support the finished road layout. Elsewhere, north of the railway, fencing is now starting to go up along the boundary line as the site continues to take shape. These posts are gradually defining the edge of the construction area, marking out the working zone and separating it from public access for safety as the works progress. It's another small but important step in establishing the site layout, as more of the perimeter becomes secured and clearly defined on the ground. Before we finish this week's episode, let's take a closer look at the drainage works that have been developing throughout the site. Over the past few days, delivery after delivery has arrived, bringing pipes, chambers and fittings for the new drainage network. It's easy to forget just how much infrastructure sits beneath our roads, largely hidden from view once construction is complete. By the end of the week, the first chambers are already in place, and sections of the new drainage run are beginning to take shape. And this is a view that once the project is complete, nobody is likely to see again. Dropping down into the trench and looking along the pipework offers a rare glimpse into the hidden infrastructure that will eventually disappear beneath layers of stone, earth and road surface, quietly doing its job for decades to come. As we continue towards the south abutment, the scale of the earthworks becomes much easier to appreciate from this perspective. What you're looking at isn't simply a track across a field. Over the past few weeks, more than 20,000 tons of stone have been delivered into this area, layer by layer, to build up the formation and create the foundations for the next stages of construction. The gradual rise in levels becomes increasingly noticeable as we approach the abutment area, with the ground being carefully engineered to meet the future alignment of the scheme. It's a reminder that long before the bridge, carriageway and structures appear, an enormous amount of work goes into creating the ground they will eventually stand on. And the earthworks don't stop there. Over here, the future piling platform for Piers 3 and 4 is beginning to emerge, although there's still plenty of work to do before it reaches its final level. substantial quantities of stone will be required in this area, with parts of the platform needing to be raised by around 1.2 metres before construction can move into the next phase. For now, the haul road continues its steady advance, creeping closer day by day and providing access to what will soon become another major work area on the scheme. And so we arrive at the south abutment. At first glance, it might not look like much more than a prepared area of ground marked with paint and survey points. But in reality, this is where one of the next major chapters of the project is about to begin. Over recent weeks, we've watched fields become work sites, haul roads push across the landscape, drainage take shape beneath the surface, and thousands upon thousands of tons of material carefully placed to create the foundations for what comes next. From Monday, this area is expected to begin its transition into an active piling platform as mobilisation for the CFA piling operation gets underway. The foundations constructed here will eventually transfer enormous loads into the ground below, with piles expected to extend around 28 metres beneath the surface. For me, that's what makes this moment special. We're standing at the point where preparation starts to become construction. The marks on the ground today are the structures of tomorrow, and when we return next week, this view may already be starting to look very different. Until then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in episode 17.